With the brand new partnership between Webtoon and Crunchyroll, we've already seen the approach Tower of God took. Now it's time to see if the God of High School can live up to whatever name people give it, as I'm not all too entirely familiar with this series. While I am a huge and massive fan of Webtoons, a quick look at my second channel says all you need to know about that. I am not typically interested in the shonen-styled stories that Webtoon has outside of the guilty-ish pleasure of Unordinary. So to be honest, I have no expectations for this series going in, and honestly coming out of it, I'm not too impressed with what's on offer here. And I do want to preface by saying I'm not a huge fan of modern shonen, but I do like shonen. But I think at this point, every time a brand new overhyped shonen comes out, I only roll my eyes at how standard and cliche they all seem to turn out to be. So with that being said, let's get into it. This is my first impression of The God of High School, Episode 1. So first off, MAPPA is working on this anime, and you can immediately see the maker's mark with this series from a stylistic and visual perspective. Characters have that full, muscular tone and look you'd expect from MAPPA after series like Inuyashiki and Kakegurui. It's obvious they took that expertise and simply iterated upon it with The God of High School, and in this way, the show genuinely is impressive in Episode 1. I also enjoy how the faces are modeled in this, and without even reading one single comment, I already know many of you dislike it as it's not that traditional anime style. But that's actually why I enjoy it. The noses and ears being that way just make the show look unique compared to the other anime in its lane. I also enjoyed the coloring and tone the anime has. It's very much like Kakegurui's saturated tones with crushing darker tones added in there. It gives the anime a very modern aesthetic and MAPPA feel you'd come to expect with their recent releases. The animation as well seems to be fairly on point, but not very impressive in terms of intricate details. In this sense, the animation is very standard, almost generic in its presentation at times, which does leave something to be desired at the moment. Of course, we'll have to see how this continues in the next episode, but from what I see, the animation so far relies heavily on the camera's movement rather than steady shots. To put it more simply, the camera follows the action. Now, I won't say I hate this outright. These things are good in openings and the like, and used rarely can be amazing. The best use that you viewers may know is Ufotable's recent release with Demon Slayer at the end of last year. But here, it takes away from the impact of the fight. The oomph of the hits are flattened somewhat, and I'm left wondering why I get the feeling this feels like a more discounted version of One Punch Man mixed with the 2000s Digimon film with Smash Mouth's OST. Smash Mouth, great OST in that film, by the way. Of course, it's too early to say for sure when it comes to animation, but right now, I'm not really impressed. For example, the bike chase sequence. Outside of it having no consequence to the story itself, it was decently entertaining and gave us very basic impressions of what the characters might be like. The animation was fine in this, but nothing that really got me excited for the show at all. There were cool shots like the girl standing on the bike with a kendo stick, but beyond that, nothing else made me say, oh damn, now this is why I have to watch The God of High School. Which leads me to the overall story as of this moment. It's cliche, and it's kind of a little boring and a little scattershot, to be honest. Take, for example, the opening sequence, which doesn't really do much to get me invested in the story. But as well the fight at the end of this episode in the arena. I tuned out multiple times and found the comedy as well in this episode to be cliche and almost juvenile in some instances with the whole elephant in the underwear thing. That really didn't do a lot to help my enjoyment of it at all. Also, why does the Star Eye guy or maybe main character want to fight the blonde dude? This brings me to another issue, and that's the fact that if you were trying to find a story to connect to, it was almost not even there at all. And the story that was there wasn't really good or even mildly engaging. This is something I hope we resolve with episode 2, but I feel like this anime is appealing to an audience that for some reason doesn't care about story and shonen. I mean, right now my first impression is that it's a bunch of people fighting in a tournament, which in itself isn't too bad, kind of what Street Fighter story is, but it's the most overdone trope in shonen outside of the speaking in your head about what you can do to defeat your enemy. But man, so far this just doesn't have much originality or uniqueness or anything to it. Also, the moments of comedy in the first episode just are not funny at all, and rely on people being hurt in some way to achieve the funnies. For example, Kendo Stick Girl getting rammed into a traffic sign, or before that when she gets hit in the face with a bike. I mean, this is classic Looney Tunes style comedy, but that stuff I've seen over and over again that I'm tired of it by this point. As well, you have both the main guy and girl having the same idea, with the grandma who got her purse stolen going through, her life story and all that. I mean, I don't get it, honestly, but maybe I'm just bored during quarantine, but I just didn't find it funny. I don't know, maybe it was the context or something, maybe it's me, but maybe it's not. This is only my first impressions after all, not a full review or my final thoughts at all. Also, what are their names? I hate series where I don't immediately get connected to the characters and at least know their names. I guess the one I like the most out of this so far is the Kendo Stick Girl, but that's because she's the only one to show the most charisma and personality, and it's not like any of them are truly interesting right now anyways. Seems like the main guy is the main guy from Digimon, but he also has yet another tragic-esque backstory or something. His friend is also just a friend. He needs money, ? And the girl that gets hit by a lot of inanimate objects randomly. That's our character traits right now, and we don't really have names for them in the first episode. Nothing about the characters at all got me interested in the series, to be honest, which I wasn't really, I wasn't expecting anything from this anime, but I was still let down somehow in this regard. But I asked yesterday on my community tab what you, my viewers and passerbys from around the YouTube community, thought of the first episode, and I'll be picking the most interesting comments for discussion. So, thank you for those who didn't get picked for these comments. I appreciate it, and I read every single one of them. I think I put a heart next to all of them that I read. So if you get a heart from me, that means I read it. I didn't really feel like replying. So, yeah, here we go. First, we have Anemian Yell talking about the noses. He doesn't really like them, and honestly, I totally get it, man. I really do. I think a lot of this kind of thing we saw with The Promised Neverland as well, and you can kind of compare this sort of mentality and reaction to the top 40 Billboard or top 40 charts for music in America. A lot of it is the same 1, 4, 5, 6 chord progressions and beats that just get regurgitated over and over. It's generally the same idea here, though. The music industry's problems has different issues which arise from that. We are used to one style in anime, and that's the super sleek looking style. So when we see something that doesn't look like a hammer down nail, we tend to want to nail it down. To me, the designs though were absolutely fine, but if you're only used to eating cheeseburgers and pizza, broccoli doesn't taste good because you have to acquire the taste, and suddenly, you like broccoli and carrots, and now I want broccoli and carrots. Good discussion, you guys. Thanks for commenting. Next up, we have this comment coming in with the absolute truth here. It looks like Digimon. And yeah, it certainly looks like Digimon, but not through any fault of its own, and as well, that's not a bad thing. I'm not complaining about it, and I'm sure he's not complaining about it either. But man, yeah, this really looks like Digimon, or like I said earlier in the video, One Punch Man cross Digimon. Good comment, and thank you for the comment. One of the greatest commenters in the anime community, the legendary Matthew Lucas. Seriously, give this guy his props if you see him. He's absolutely dedicated to anime and anime channels, supporting a lot of them. He's in so many comment sections from around the internet, so give this guy some props, give this guy some love. He says this will be one of the most talked about anime of the season, and I agree. But I also think, based off episode 1, most people will probably forget about it by the end if they don't really kick it into high gear in these next episodes. Thanks for the comment, Matthew. Appreciate it. Nothing Yet Everything brings up the OST in his comment, and honestly, I agree. The music is pretty solid so far, and looking it up, seems the person behind the score is Arisa Okihazama, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name, or if she's watching, I'm sorry, mispronounce your name, I don't think you're watching my video, but she did really well on this score. She seems to be working with MAPPA as some sort of intern, and on their upcoming anime, Jujutsu Kaisen, so props to her. Nothing but love, and good comment. I appreciate it. Thank ya. Another frequent commenter on my channel, Solo Warrior, says the episode skips some stuff, in particular about the recruiting of the fighters, the 3 MCs, Mori and Ars. The blonde guy was not mentioned, but shown in the webtoon. Elaine Lopobia, sorry if I mispronounced that, also says they took out the bit when Morris is saying to himself he's the best fighter, and also the fight with V. And man, this is really disappointing to read because they did this with Tower of God, which served to harm an otherwise okay story. This was my fear, that they would just cut stuff and rush, and it seems that they're not above doing that. This also explains why the pacing and writing in this first episode makes absolutely no sense at all. Anyways, thanks for the comment, guys, and the replies. It's much appreciated. Thank you. M. Staudinger, hope I pronounced that right, and if I apologize if I did not. He says that the power scaling at some point made him quit. Of course, I don't know if that means it got to, DBZ or Naruto levels of strange, but still it seems this was an issue for him. But he goes on to say it's entertaining, but he just doesn't enjoy it much now. And honestly, that's kind of the feeling I get from the very first episode. And I know it's more of like intuition, or it's not even intuition, it's kind of like a theory, I guess, or you watch something and you're like, oh, I can see it definitely going down that route, but you're not for sure. That's the feeling I got. That the series will probably go down the route of just having insane bonkers fights with crazy power scaling because, it's a shonen. But, thank you for the comment. And honestly, that's it for the comments that I have. A lot of great positive discussion here. Everyone's very respectful, very nice, and I appreciate that. I definitely do. I will leave a link to the post just in case you want to read more comments from that, like something I had left out, or you want to read new comments, or you want to reply to some of these comments. And I'm sure by the time this video goes up, we'll probably have 100 more comments on that post. So, also to get these notifications for the community tab so you can possibly be in a video, all you gotta do is, when you subscribe, just hit the bell and select all notifications. This will let YouTube know to send those your way when I post them. Or, you can just bookmark my community tab, as I post once a day on the community tab without fail. So with that being said, post your first impressions in the comments below on this video. Tell me what you think about The God of High School. I'm very interested. Also, if you guys have any experience with the webtoon, what do you think about the webtoon in comparison with this first episode? I'm actually really eager to hear about that because, like I said, Tower of God had an issue of cutting stuff out. Definitely want to know if that's the same thing with The God of High School. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you get those community tab notifications. As well, become a channel member. It's very cheap. It's just 99 cents to join the lowest tier, which is, I very recommend it because you get early access to many of my videos when I can post them early. As well, I have a Teespring where I sell t-shirts, and I have a Patreon where on the $1 tier and above, you get access to everything. It doesn't matter what tier you're on. So thanks everybody for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.